Eskom says South Africans must brace themselves for a tough winter ahead. The power utility says this is because it may implement stages up to stage 8 rolling blackouts this winter season. Eskom says this is due to some of the Kusile units that are still out and one from Medupi power station. But the power utility says this by no means the country will be subjected to system collapse, a countrywide blackout. Now let's get analysis. We are now joined via Zoom by energy expert Ruse Moleshe. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon, ma'am. Now, in all likelihood, it looks like South Africans, should brace themselves for approximately 16 hours of load shedding. If we look at stage 8 this winter, if we are looking at the worst case scenario, especially when you consider that, as we said in the introduction, that Kusile 1, 2, and 3 as well as Kuburg are now down. Just how bad are things looking, especially as we look at the energy availability factor that has dropped substantially?
Good afternoon, Unati, as well as the viewers. Yes, the situation is not ideal at all because in winter, as you know, we increase the demand because we use thermal needs, we need to heat up, we need to, so the demand increases generally, whereas the supply has remained constrained. And as Eskom said, that relative to last year, there's almost 3,000 megawatts that we are going with a deficit with compared to last year. So if we continue to have unplanned maintenance because of breakdowns, that's going to exacerbate the situation.
Yesterday, the leadership of Eskom, of course, at pains to describe the situation and just how bad things are, but also going as far as saying that, this is the difference between what we're experiencing now, which is load shedding, to what a total blackout is. And of course, a collapse to the grid, saying that is unplanned and of course unscheduled and a situation where we don't want to find ourselves in. Maybe just take us back to describe to us what that essentially would mean. And that, of course, is, the collapse of the grid.
The collapse of the grid is something that's really very rare to happen in other events, as Eskom pointed out. It has happened due to unexpected weather conditions in other countries. And what Eskom is doing by doing load shedding is to make sure that the system does not get to a point where we experience a blackout. So if our demand exceeds supply, they will then reduce the demand so that the system is maintained at a good level and the expected frequency. So we don't expect that because of load shedding, the system operator is avoiding having a system that is that will collapse. So it's a good thing, though it's not good for us.
Now, just looking at, some of the urgent interventions that need to happen, I see that the Powership conversation is now back on, with the Department of Transport basically saying that it's given Powership South Africa access to 3 ports, and we know, of course, that South Africa needs power and it needs it urgently. But the question, of course, is at what cost? I mean, this is estimated around 200 billion rand, we're told, over the proposed 20 years or so. Is this the best solution now? Just considering what we are told about how this will essentially just help reduce load shedding by one stage.
So let's say a solution that adds supply to the very constrained Eskom system is a good thing, because we do need supply to both to meet demand, but also for maintenance, for the plants that we put out for maintenance, we do need additional capacity. So it is a good thing. And when you look at the costs, the costs, you have to look at them with respect to the cost of unserved energy in the economy, which is also very expensive. So our interventions right now are to look at diesel, for instance, as an additional measure to be able to address our supply constraints. Diesel itself is extremely expensive. So South Africa will, without additional capacity to the system, will not be able to resolve load shedding. We can do demand side management as much as we want, but it will not help us to the extent that we require. So from that perspective, from a system management point of view, the car powership will help relieve the constraints that we face.
Now, earlier in a conversation that I had with Minister Barbara Creasy, she was talking about her department currently processing more than 9,000 megawatts applications for renewable energy projects, as part of just addressing the load shedding energy crisis. Importantly, is how the department will fast track this, and what difference it will make. Just your comment around, how this will come in handy, particularly as you look at the short to medium term.
Unati, the department is likely to fast track these projects, renewable energy projects. Obviously, they have advantages in terms of environmental impact, as they are cleaner sources of energy. However, we do need to have storage that goes with that, as well as we do back them up with the use of diesel. So because of intermittency. So we do still need flexible supply to be able to supplement that. And this is why we require, Eskom has indicated that if the unplanned maintenance go up to 18,000, we'll have a requirement of about 6,000 megawatts. So every project that can come online is obviously helpful, but we do need flexible supply, which is where the car powership and gas would come in.
Also, during the Eskom briefing, the transmission CEO just basically trying to explain that, it would be looking into the utility that is into a higher stages up to stage 16. Just unpack what this would look like, because we know that we are currently, we do go up to stage 8, which is highly likely that would be effective this winter.
So in terms of the standards and what is applicable right now, it's up to stage 8. So therefore, Eskom has to make sure that in an event that we go beyond the stage 8, that they are able to do so from a regulatory point of view. So that is what they are looking for. It's almost like an insurance policy to make sure that if we go beyond the stages that we have right now, then they are able to do so.
Kusile, thank you
hopefully
so much.
we don't go to...
Hopefully we don't go to stage 8. I agree with you. Thank you. Thank you so much
for your time.
All right, Ruse Moleshe, the energy expert, of course, just talking about various issues affecting us from an energy crisis perspective, just talking about the likelihood of South Africans going to stage 8 this winter. In fact, that translates to about 16 hours of load shedding. Also responding there to the powership conversation that's currently going on, the Department of Transport allowing it to dock in about 3 of those bays in South Africa.